The National Desk, America's News Now. Breaking news off the top tonight, the death toll in the Middle East rising, more than 1,500 people in Israel and Palestine. And we're also learning more about the number of Americans killed there. The U.S. State Department now confirming that number up to 11. And in another major development, it's believed U.S. citizens could be among the hostages in Gaza. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just wrapped up an address in which he said the military is attacking Hamas with a force, quote, like never before. He then went on to say, what we will do to our enemies in the coming days will reverberate with them for generations. That speech followed a stunning new threat from Hamas, the group saying that it will kill civilian hostages anytime Israel carries out a new attack. Right now, Hamas claims to be holding more than 100 hostages, including children. We begin our coverage tonight with new information and images from the ground. First, a warning, some of this video is disturbing. Here's the National Desk's Christine Frizzell.
It is the pure definition of terrorism. A day enjoying music with friends disrupted by members of a militant group who have expressed public hatred for your country, indiscriminately killing more than 260 people, taking others. 25-year-old Noah Argamami driven away on the back of a motorcycle in this video. Her family overcome with grief.
You don't want to believe it, even though you can clearly see it's your daughter.
This clip shows what Yoni Asher says is his wife and two small daughters also being taken.
The last thing she said to me was that there are terrorists in the house.
In a country used to being targeted, what's unfolded over the last few days is far more terrifying, says Leah Gorshin, who spoke to us from Tel Aviv.
There's not a single person on the streets. There's no cars. People are scared to go outside. Life has completely stopped.
Of all the images that you've been seeing on TV, on social media, what's really stuck with you?
It's hard to even talk about. I think the hostage situation is the worst thing imaginable. There's videos of a woman with her two small children, of a child who's 12 years old, of women who have blood on their pants, who have clearly experienced sexual assault, who are being kidnapped. And I don't think you can ever unsee something like that.
The State Department confirming at least 9 Americans are among the dead, with no information about how many may have been taken hostage. The father of 22-year-old Hirsch Goldberg Poland from Berkeley, California, says his son is among the missing. There are two things we keep hearing time and time again from those we speak to inside Israel. One, they're struggling to get information from their government. And two, this conflict has managed to unify a country that just days ago was somewhat divided over politics and policy about the future. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Well, the White House just shared this photo of President Biden. You see him there coordinating the U.S. response with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The president just finished speaking with the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, and the U.K. in the past few hours. That call focusing on the best ways to provide military and humanitarian aid to Israel. Now, meantime, the Department of Defense says it's surging support to Israel. They're expediting the shipment of air defense and munitions as well. And the U.S. Central Command is reviewing its inventory to determine any additional resources that can be shipped to Israel. Well, of course, we following developments on this story all night long. You can stay up to date 24/7 by visiting us online. TheNationalDesk.com is where you want to go. And of course, tune into the late edition of TND. You want to check your local listings to watch live. Right now, a live look over the U.S. Capitol, where House Republicans say that they are moving forward in the process to select a new speaker. They can't conduct any official business, though, until the position is filled. The two frontrunners now emerging as House Majority Leader Steve Scalise from Louisiana and Ohio's Jim Jordan. They presented their platforms today during a closed-door party conference meeting. But it appears Republicans will have another option. Kevin McCarthy saying that he's willing to return to the speakership if the Republicans who ousted him last change their mind. After being ousted last week, he said that he would not run for that position again. Now, here are the next steps in this process. Following today's talks, there will be a candidate forum that's happening tomorrow, and Republicans hope to hold an internal election Wednesday. There's no floor vote scheduled at this point, though. Between the new conflicts between Israel and Hamas and the looming spending deadline as well, there's growing pressure for House Republicans to fill that vacancy and get to work. New details tonight in the deadly mass shooting at a Pennsylvania community center. Hours ago, police identifying that man killed as 22-year-old Jamar Harriet Jr. He died at the scene of that shooting early Sunday morning. Another victim remains in critical condition tonight. Police say there were more than 100 people in the building when it happened, and they're asking those witnesses to now come forward and help them solve the crime.
Your support is felt. Please continue that support. And again, if you were there or if you know anything, it is incumbent that you contact the members of the state police and provide them with that information.
And right now, there's nobody in custody for the shooting, and authorities have not released a description of a suspect or anything like that. It's not exactly clear why anyone opened fire. Over to Maryland now. Police, they're searching for the suspects accused of shooting two people on Bowie State University's campus. The victims will be okay. Police say that they're not students. This shooting happened Saturday night during the school's homecoming weekend. The university invited students from nearby Morgan State to celebrate after their homecoming was canceled following a mass shooting there. Happening now, another 3,900 United Auto Workers members on strike tonight. They voted down a tentative agreement with Mack Trucks. Now, that deal included a 19% wage increase over 5 years, and of course, also some better retirement benefits. But it fell short on their demands to eliminate wage tiers, shorten the work week, and also implement cost of living adjustments. They will now join workers striking at the Big Three at the picket line. And we're expecting another series of walkouts this week across the country. Walgreens pharmacists plan to walk off the job to protest workloads and staffing issues. Organizers say that patients are at risk because employees are overwhelmed with filling prescriptions and administering vaccines. Walgreens acknowledged employees are overworked and said it's making significant investments to address that issue. The summer of strikes isn't showing any sign of slowing down, and the surprisingly strong September jobs report shows that demand for workers is still high, giving them more negotiating power right now. The question now is when the labor market will cool down. The National Desk's Angela Brown explains which factors economists are watching.
President Joe Biden taking a victory lap after September's stunning jobs report.
The unemployment rate has stayed below 4% for 20 months in a row, the longest stretch in 50 years.
Unemployment, 3.8%. 336,000 jobs in September added. Diane Swank, chief economist, KPMG.
95% of the job gains in two sectors that had been lagging, leisure and hospitality and in healthcare.
Jobs in bars and restaurants returning to pre-pandemic levels, but many restaurants are still feeling the pinch from inflation and a September slowdown. Our team in Charleston talked to restaurant owners and restaurant groups.
The way the economy has shifted, got to September this year, and we were talking not like a 10% decrease. We're talking 15, 20. Some restaurants were like, I haven't had a month like this in 10, 15 years.
September's jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shattering expectations, but going forward, the red-hot job market could cool, according to data compiled by staffing firm Manpower.
So remember, BLS is a look in the rearview mirror, and we can look day to day at what's happening across industries in our country. And what we're seeing is about a 5% decline month over month in job postings.
There is a downside to September's jobs report. Fox News is reporting that 40% of the jobs were second jobs. That means people are taking on additional work just to get by. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Breaking now, brand new video just coming in here showing the moments Gaza militants arrived in Israel. How the Biden administration is responding to claims recent U.S. action may have helped make that attack possible. In the U.S., another twist ahead of the 2024 election. Why some experts are now concerned Joe Biden could lose key votes to Robert F. Kennedy. And still to come, educators in Texas taking a stand against school choice. Why they say school vouchers will hurt the public education system. We'll be right back. Breaking news now, brand new video showing the moments Gaza militants arrived. The timestamp there, 7:11 a.m. Saturday. Well, that's just 30 minutes after the border wall between Gaza and Israel was breached. And you can see the men there heavily armed. This is surveillance video from just 3 miles from the site of the music festival where 260 people were killed. Hamas claims that Saturday's unprecedented attacks were years in the making, but tonight there's growing skepticism that the group carried this out alone and questions about how recent policies may have played into it. Here's the National Desk's Kayla Gaskins.
As the smoke from this weekend's horrific attacks settles over Israel, experts on the Middle East tend to agree there's no way Hamas pulled this off alone. In the immediate aftermath, Hamas leaders went on camera thanking Iran for weapons, money, and rockets that made the attack possible. And while Biden made the United States' position on the conflict clear,
let there be no mistake. The United States stands with the state of Israel.
Critics say his policies towards Iran set the conditions for this unprecedented level of attack.
They are wealthier, richer, and stronger under this Biden administration, and they're using that wealth to fund terrorism, attacking our allies and killing Americans.
At the center of the backlash, $6 billion of Iranian assets freed up in a deal for 5 American hostages. This money meant strictly for humanitarian purposes, but Iran making it clear they can use the funds however they want. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushing back on the criticism.
The account is closely regulated by the U.S. Treasury Department, so it can only be used for things like food, medicine, medical equipment.
Richard Goldberg with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy says giving Iran access to this money for humanitarian aid frees up money in other areas of their budget, thus allowing more money for funding terrorist organizations.
We should not be allowing Iran, the sponsor of Hamas, the supporter of Hamas, to have any money whatsoever. We should be doing all we can to cut off the supply of cash, both to Tehran and the terrorist organizations themselves.
And a Hamas spokesperson told the BBC they had Iran's direct backing for this attack. The Wall Street Journal reporting Iran was involved in the planning process of the surprise attack for weeks. The Iranian government, though, now says they had no direct involvement.
And Kayla, what are U.S. officials saying about Iran's role in the attacks?
Well, U.S. officials say it's still very early in their investigations, and there's no clear direct link between these attacks and Tehran. Although Secretary of State Antony Blinken did say that Iran and Hamas have a long-term relationship of being on pretty good terms. U.S. officials do say they will continue to investigate this until Iran's role becomes clear. Eugene.
Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Thank you. Another shakeup for the 2024 presidential election. Robert F. Kennedy dropping his Democratic primary bid in order to run for president as an independent. Kennedy has accused the DNC of rigging the primary process against him, specifically criticizing the decision not to host debates where he would face off against President Biden. Kennedy believes the country is ready to move beyond the traditional two-party system. Here's what he said earlier.
Something is stirring in us that says it doesn't have to be this way. People stop me everywhere at airports, at hotels and malls, on the street, and they remind me that this country is ready for a history-making change. They are ready to reclaim their freedom, their independence.
This is interesting. Recent polling from YouGov shows that Kennedy has more support among Republicans than he does among Democrats. While 2024 is shaping up to be a rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, Kennedy's independent run joins a growing list of third-party candidates that could impact this race. Progressive activist Cornel West plans to run as an independent after dropping his Green Party bid. And the new political party, No Labels, is ramping up its recruiting efforts as well. The National Desk team of reporters bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. We begin in Texas, where teachers are rallying for public education as the state considers a new school voucher program.
That's a real slap in the face. The fact that we would be talking about a voucher scheme without anything on the agenda to talk about funding our schools, giving our teachers the pay raises, it is absolutely egregious.
Those against education savings accounts or school vouchers say they would help parents put their children in private schools instead of public schools, taking money away from public schools that are already in need of more funding and more teachers.
What it does is it defunds the public school system and it degrades the ability for educators to budget for the students and for the personnel.
Others see school vouchers in the state as a positive thing, allowing families to make their own choices when it comes to where their child receives their education.
They know their kids the best. They know what works for them, what doesn't. And so they have decided to make sure their kids get the best education, whether it's public or private. And I think every parent in Texas should be able to have that choice.
A clash at a Chattanooga Pride event at a riverfront restaurant caught on camera.
You people are sick, you are twisted, you are demented, you are disgusting. How dare you do a drag show in front of children?
The whole encounter posted to Instagram. The woman who grabbed the mic, Ottawa resident Bevelyn Williams.
You shouldn't be doing it in front of children. You shouldn't be doing this in front of children. You shouldn't be doing it in front of children.
The Pride on the River event was open to all ages according to this Chattanooga Pride lineup, but in the video posted to Instagram, we could only identify one young person sitting in a booth with their parents. In the 7-minute video, recorded by Williams' husband, you can see Williams confront the parents of that young person. Restaurant employees and attendees tried to get Williams to leave. By the end of the video, a Chattanooga police officer escorted Williams out. We tracked down Williams, who says she went to the event to see if children were present.
And the reality is this event, Gay Pride, is wrapped around one thing and one thing only: sexuality, which is something that shouldn't be exposed to any kid, whether gay or heterosexual.
Going to be our admissions office and our financial aid office.
A new barbershop is coming to the Low Country.
A retail area, and then when you go out, you'll be going out into the salon area where the students will be training.
But it's more than just a place for a quick cut.
So we wanted to provide an opportunity to the community to learn an honorable trade, that's barbering. We wanted to provide something that the community can gravitate around as far as learning a skill, learning how to work together, learning how to provide resources, and just pretty much outreach to the community.
Edwards and Norman plan for Contagious Cuts to become a barber college. And in addition, the shop will bring necessary resources to the community.
New tonight, the American Heart Association issued some new guidance on how to identify and diagnose a new condition called cardiovascular kidney metabolic syndrome, or CKM. The American Heart Association says treating health problems like kidney disease, obesity, and diabetes as part of a larger syndrome encourages doctors to begin preventative care earlier. They say that will help patients avoid more serious health issues down the road, things like heart attacks, heart failure, or stroke. Another health alert for you tonight. KVK Tech is recalling a batch of the blood pressure medication Betaxolol because it could contain an opioid painkiller. They found an oxycodone pill on the packaging line after the batch was complete. The affected medicine has an expiration date of June 2027, and the company is now notifying pharmacies, who will then contact patients. Coming up on the national desk, after historic settlements over the opioid crisis, states are now beginning to spend the millions paid out by pharmaceutical companies. Spotlight on America looks into how that settlement money is being spent and whether that's saving lives. fight against the opioid epidemic is getting a big cash infusion. Across the country right now, states are beginning to receive the more than $50 billion in lawsuit settlement money from the pharmaceutical industry. But as that money is distributed, the debate is growing over how to spend the funds. Spotlight on America national investigative correspondent Angie Moreski reports.
Do you need any Narcan? All right.
Josh McClenathan is lead recovery coach at the Grand Rapids Red Project.
Here, take this. Let me grab a bag for you.
Part of his job is to provide what's called harm reduction services, like clean syringes.
Press this little button there, and it releases that medication.
And the overdose reversal medication Narcan for drug users like Karen.
So just one breath. It's a bridge to help people improve their quality of life.
Do you think you would be alive today if it wasn't for their help?
Probably not.
How important is this opioid settlement money to solve the opioid crisis in our community?
It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Opioid Policy Center Executive Director Jonathan Stoltman says it's imperative for this money to go directly towards saving lives.
This past couple years, we've had over 100,000 overdose deaths.
From Michigan to here in Florida, each individual state gets to decide how it wants to spend its cut of the money, with one stipulation: at least 70% must go to battle opioid-related problems in the community today.
So far, states and local communities have allocated funds from the $52 billion settlement to everything from a center in Rhode Island where people can use drugs under medical supervision, to a drug detective in Pennsylvania, a police cruiser and body scanners in West Virginia, and clean syringe programs in Michigan.
So these are some of the different syringes that we provide.
Red Project Executive Director Steve Alsam says they received $200,000 in settlement money from Michigan for their clean syringe program.
So we really got to make sure that these funds are spent in a way that we can help people who are using drugs right now stay healthy and stay alive. Because if people aren't alive, there's not much we can do with them.
More than 130 public health advocates signed a roadmap on how they believe the money would be best spent. It explicitly says no opioid settlement money should be spent on law enforcement personnel, overtime, or equipment.
You don't want to see this money going toward law enforcement.
Not at all. I think law enforcement has so much money. What good's that going to do? Lock more people up?
Polk County, Florida Sheriff and former National Sheriff's Association President Grady Judd also questions some of the spending.
No, you shouldn't take opioid money and buy police cars. That is just not right. But let's be clear. If they can cut law enforcement off from getting funds, then they can have more funds to give away more needles. I'm not for that either. That encourages bad behavior.
He wants to see law enforcement use the money for recovery services to help users who are incarcerated.
Mental health services and medications that get them off of and keep them off of their drugs.
Would you want help to stop using?
No,
No.
not really.
Why not?
Because I like it.
Here, take this. Let me
The
grab
Red Project says while their goal is not to get people to stop using drugs, the hope is to keep users alive. Then, if they choose to seek treatment, be there as a bridge to recovery. With more than 200 opioid overdose deaths every day in the U.S., it's critical to figure out the most effective way to use this money. Complicating that process, a lack of transparency in some states. We'll take a closer look at that controversy in our next report. For Spotlight on America, I'm Angie Moreski.
And we'll have that second report from Angie later this week. Meantime, she's been following this for a long time, and you can find her previous reporting on the opioid crisis on our website, thenationaldesk.com. Just look under the Spotlight on America tab. So to come here on the National Desk, all eyes on Hawaii's most active volcano tonight. The new indications that another eruption could be happening soon. Today, millions of people are celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. It falls on the same day as Columbus Day, but many states and cities have now chosen to observe Indigenous Peoples Day as a way to honor the people already living in the country when Christopher Columbus landed in 1492. Across the country, people honored the influence of Native American culture and contributions with educational and community events. Right now, scientists are keeping a close eye on Mount Kilauea in Hawaii. It's caused more than 300 earthquakes in just the past 24 hours. That can be a sign that the volcano could erupt soon. Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. Its last eruption was back in September. There are no signs of lava yet, but Hawaiian officials are still warning people that volcanic gas exposure and rock slides will be possible in that area. A reminder before you go, you still have time to buy a ticket for tonight's Powerball drawing. If you want to strike it rich, there were no winners Saturday night, which means the jackpot is now up to $1.5 billion. It is the third highest prize in lottery history. No one's won since July 19th. Your chances of winning, though, not so great. They're around 1 in 292 million. That's going to do it for this edition of the National Desk. Of course, join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. Just check your local listings. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching.